Hey everyone, welcome to my tutorial. I'll be showing you how to do a basic rig for a bird using this Falcon model. Each major step is going to be broken down into sections as we complete each one. Let's get started. Okay, so before we actually get into the rigging, we need to do some preparation. I personally don't like looking at the texture while I'm working on the model itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit 5 on the keyboard. That way it disables the texture. But if you do want to have the texture on, you can hit 6 or you can hit 5 just to disable it. Next, what I like to do is I like to make the layers I'm going to need for rigging the model. So what I usually like to do is I usually like to have 2 layers. I'll name one of them mesh, and then I'll name the other one bones. The reason why I have these 2 layers is because one, for the mesh, what we're going to do, let's put that in object mode. What I like to do is I like to make it so you cannot select the layer while you're working on the bones. Otherwise it just gets to be a pain and I had to add it. There we go. No, sure. There we go. Yeah, so you just got to make sure that it's on that layer so that way it's unselectable. And then that way, if we need to work with the bones, we can toggle the visibility of this or we can toggle the visibility of the bones. You're not seeing anything right now because there's no bones, but once they are added, you'll see what I mean. Alright, now it's time to get into the actual rigging of the bird. What I like to do with any new model whenever I'm working on it, I like to at least have a general idea of what the bone structure is, or at least some of the more complex parts. So for example, the wings may be a little bit more complex and the legs themselves may be a little bit more complex. For us humans, the legs would just naturally bend just one way, but with a bird, it could bend different ways. So I always like to check and have at least a general idea. So I'm going to pull up these reference images that I have. And as you can see here with the wings, here's a human bone, a human arm. And just as we know, the arm would just bend like that. However, with a wing, it actually bends in multiple places. So we'll need to keep that in mind while we're working on our rig. And then with the bird's feet, as you can see right here along the legs, it actually does a similar thing where it bends in multiple places. So we'll need to keep that in mind while we're working on it. Okay, so let's get back to the model. So I'm going to choose to start at the wings just as a starting point. It doesn't really matter where you start, just so long as you make sure that all the joints are connected in the end. So when we start off rigging, we need to make sure that we're in the right perspective. I don't like using the perspective when it comes to rigging because you're never in the exact certain angle. So for example, how you can be on the top, bottom, left, right. Perspective is like anything that you want it. It just can't be that perfect angle that you're looking for. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to go to orthographic and we're going to try the top and we'll see how this looks. Okay, doesn't look too bad. Let's see how it looks with X-ray. Hmm. Yeah, that's not too bad in a point. You can do this if you'd like, but personally what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new one and I'm going to make it the bottom. The only reason I'm doing this is just for personal preference because I'd rather work with the ring that's represented in the image over here. Similar to like how you see it like this in this image, and then now it's in the same perspective. To me, it's just easier, so I'm just going to start off with that. So let's start adding joints to the wings. So we're going to make sure that we're set to rigging. We can add 3 on the keyboard if it's not set to that. And then we're going to go to create joints. And we'll use the reference image and see where the bone starts. So it's right around here. So on the reference model, we'll put it at right around here as the start point. And then for the next one, we'll look at this again. And we'll see that it does a little a little bend, where it bends down to here, goes back there, and then bends a little bit. It's almost straight, but it's a little bit down. So we'll go back to the model, and we can see that it starts to bend right around here. So we'll put our second joint here, our third one here, and then we'll put our fourth one right here for now. I'm going to remove some of these joints because they're not exactly where I'd like them to be. This one right here is a little too high, so we're going to hold D, and then we're going to move it down. And then we'll select this one as well, and then we'll move it down just a little bit. You don't have to hold D for this one, but it's force of habit for me. Okay, and then this looks pretty good. So let's take a look at it from the other perspectives. So we're gonna go to panels and we'll set this one to the perspective and we'll take a look at it. Alright, so it's not looking too bad overall. Of course we're gonna have to readjust it, but I just wanted to get a good look at it and see how it looks alright right now. So we're gonna move to this camera angle right here. This is the front, I believe. Let me double check. Let's see, front. Yep, okay, so it's the front. Alright, so we're going to put X-ray on once again, and we're going to move these into place. So we'll move this down, and then we're going to move this one up. So once, actually you don't have to hold D, you can just click and drag. I'm going to put this right around the area you would find it in. This one's a little bit higher, so in this case, we want to move it down just a little bit. And then we're going to move this one back up. Okay, so now that doesn't look too bad right now. Let's double check it in perspective to see how it came out. And that looks pretty good. That's right around where we want it to be. Okay, so next we're going to work on the legs. Alright, so let's get to working on the legs. So we're going to switch to our side view. And then if X-ray is not already on, you're going to turn that on. And as we remember from looking at the reference image, the bone does a little shape that's similar to this. So what we're going to do is we're going to start our leg bone up here. Then we're going to move the second one to here, have our third one be right around here, and then our fourth and final one be right around there. So these are a little big, so we're going to readjust the size of these real quick. Let's try 0.1 for this. It's looking alright. Let's try 0.1 for this one as well. Shrink this one down to 0.5. And we'll shrink this one down to 0.5 as well. Actually, let's make this one 0.75. Alright, so that looks pretty good. So we're just going to readjust them a little bit because they're a little bit off. So we're going to hit D and move this one up. Move this one up a little bit more to the side. And move this one up and to the side just a little bit. The most important thing is when you're working on this, you'll see a little later, but we're going to be making these bendable. So you're going to want to make sure that they have a little bit, at least a little bit of a bend to them for when we get into the IK. So now that we have that, we're going to move back to the front view and then readjust it accordingly. So we're going to go to the top, grab that piece, and then we're going to move it over. And move it right about there. So let's take a look at it from the perspective and see how it looks. It's looking pretty good. Everything looks lined up and everything looks good to go. Alright, so now that we've done that, as you can see, I put it on the wrong side, but for the next step, that's not going to matter anyways, because the next step is mirroring the joints over. Before we mirror the joints, it's going to be best if we rename them. Renaming your joints is very efficient for when you're working on other steps in the future. So we're going to call this part, we're going to call it L for left, and then we're just going to call it wing 01. And then we're just going to go down the list and then rename them accordingly. So I'm just going to copy this, rename this one to L-wing 02, L-wing 03. And then for the end joints, what I like to call these is the same thing, except I like to call it end. So we're going to do the same thing for down here, since this is the right side. We're going to call it R leg 01. Copy that. Name this one R leg 02, 03, and then R leg end. Okay, so now we can actually start getting to the mirroring part. Okay, so now let's start mirroring the joints. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the start joint, And we're going to go to mirror joints and hit the box. Okay, so right here you see how it says search for and then replace it this. When you're doing that, it's looking for what's going to be in the name and then replace it for that. So we're going to take this, we're actually going to move it over here, and then we're going to replace it with this. So if I did it correctly, it should replace the L with the R, and then that's all it should do for the name. And you should have it on this axis, and then once you're all set, you hit apply. And then, yeah, as you can see, it renamed all the joints into what the correct one is. Okay, good. So now let's do that with the leg. So since this is the right side, what we're going to do instead is we're going to have it search for R and then replace it with L. And then once we hit mirror, that should be all set. Yep, all that's good to go. Okay, so now it's time to move on to the next step. So next we're going to finish off the rigging for the body as well as add IK for the wings and the legs. So we're going to change this perspective to bottom, and then we're going to add in the joints for the neck and the head. So first off, we want a joint for where the the wings are going to meet. So we're going to add one right here in the middle. And we want the rest of the bones to be straight from here on out. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold shift and we're going to click one for the neck and then one for the head. Okay, and these are a little bit bigger than what I would want them to be. So let's try changing them to 0.1 instead. Yeah, that's looking like it's going to be a lot better. Perfect. Okay, so now we just need to make sure that this one is center, since the rest of them are straight because of what we were doing. Okay, let's take a look at it now from the perspective. Okay, so this needs to be lowered a bit. So we're going to go back down to our side view, and then lower it from here. Alright, so we're going to click on the main one, and then we're just going to bring it down. And this should actually be all the way up here, just so that one gets all the way up there. And now let's take a look at it. Okay, that's definitely looking good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to link these two with the arms. So we're going to click on these two arms first. Then we'll click on this. We're going to hit P for parent. And now when I click on that, it should click on the whole top part of the bird. Alright, perfect. So now that's done. So now let's get to the legs and back. So we're going to readjust our perspective to the top. And now we're going to start adding some joints. So what we're going to do is we're going to add one for the center, another one near the bones, one for where the tail starts, and then a couple of them for more control for the tail. And then we're just going to do a little bit of readjusting. For the most part, these are good, but we just want to adjust it a little bit. Okay, and now we just want to parent this bone to this one, so that way they're connected. And then when I click on this one, I click on the entire rig once I link those two legs together. So before we link the legs together, let's move these into the right place. So we're going to go to our side view, and then we're going to just start progressively moving these down. Move these ones next. And move this one down slightly. Okay, and now we're going to just link the legs together so that way they go to that one bone. Hit P. Okay, and that's pretty much it for our rig. Now we just need to do the IK. Now we're going to add the IK handles. So we're going to go to skeleton, create IK handle, and we're going to do 2 for the legs and then 2 for the arms. So we're going to add one there, and then add one there. And then we're going to do the same thing for the legs. So we're going to go IK handle once again, go from there to there, and from here to there. And I should have just mirrored these after doing that, So what we'll do is we'll just delete these and we'll remirror them now. So we're going to go to skeleton, mirror joint, make sure that those two are correct, mirror them, and do the same thing for here. Okay, now we can actually get to testing the rig and seeing how it came out. Okay, now let's actually see how the rig came out. So first we're going to click on this so it selects all the bones. Now we're going to go back to our layer and make our mesh selectable again. And now once we do that, we're going to do bind skin. And then once we deselect, we can see that all the bones are now synced up with the model. So now let's do some checking, see how it came out. So when we bend these, the wings should bend pretty well. And overall they do a very nice job. Alright, and now let's check with the legs. And we'll do some bending right around here and see how these came out. So there's some pulling with the wings, but that we might fix in a later video. But for now, this is just the basic rigging, just going over how the actual bone structure works, and we may do that in a later video. But overall, this is how you rig a falcon, and you can apply this to many other birds. And let's see how the head went too. Yeah, it went pretty good. Alright, well thank you very much for watching, and if you want some more videos, especially to continue this one, just let me know, and then we'll do that. Alright, see ya.